For all its many charms, San Clemente is, at its core, a beach town. It always has been, and it always will be, so long as we're committed to protecting the coastline. Founded in 1925, San Clemente, the Spanish village by the sea, has long been known for its beautiful beaches. For nearly a century, these beaches have been the heart of our community, shaping our identity and connecting generations through a shared love for the coast. San Clemente's beaches have long served as a natural barrier, protecting the railroad, our homes, and vital infrastructure. They've also shaped a lifestyle, culture, and economy that are uniquely San Clemente. From this vintage pic of North Beach looking towards the pier, you can see wide beaches and no obstructions. But over the past decade, San Clemente's beaches have been disappearing. By 2019, North Beach, and especially the Mariposa area to the south, were in tatters compared to what beachgoers were used to for decades. At the south end of town, a similar situation would unfold. Wide and healthy beaches gave way to narrow beaches and a perilous situation for the railroad. Once beach erosion hits a tipping point and the ocean's energy is breaking on rocks, in this case, the riprap protecting the railroad, the end result is a beach that can't maintain or rebuild itself. It can also result in costly infrastructure damage and even landslides. Water breaking on wide, sandy beaches is the answer. The fact is, in the last decade, San Clemente has lost not only a lot of beach, but also a number of surf spots. Let's examine how we got in this situation. Historically, sand was transported to the coast via an extensive drainage basin. Numerous creeks and streams from Dana Point to San Onofre created a natural sand replenishment system, including long-gone arroyos at Pochi, Avenida Pico, T Street, Riviera, and State Park. Rivers and creeks flowing through the foothills eventually reached the ocean, naturally depositing sand along the coast. San Juan Creek, whose mouth and delta is located just south of Dana Point, was once the region's largest contributor of sand, with most of its work being done during extreme weather events like those that hit Southern California in 1938, 1969, and 1983. Unfortunately, over time, rampant urban sprawl has paved over our watershed, like we see here in the San Juan Capistrano Valley. And upstream armoring is preventing sand transport. One recent study found that natural sediment loads in SoCal have been reduced by as much as 91%. A rush to pave the watershed was triggered by the flood events of 1933 and 1938. That would alter the Southern California landscape for decades to come. In February 1938, almost 10 inches of rain fell over the course of several days, causing historic devastation across Orange County and raising awareness of the need for stormwater infrastructure, basically dams and flood channels. In the wake of this flood control objective, new emphasis was placed on building dams and flood channels. These massive concrete structures were built throughout the local mountains, foothills, and coastal flatlands. And while over the years these actions mitigated storm flood damage, it significantly impacted natural sand flow, preventing it from reaching Southern California beaches. In fact, California's dams have trapped some 2.7 billion cubic yards of sediment from reaching the coast. So what's the solution? Sand replenishment is the process of adding sand to our beaches to replace what's been lost due to natural erosion, upstream flood control, and widespread development across our watershed. It's restoring the shoreline where Mother Nature can no longer do so on her own. Beach nourishment must be done properly to limit negative impacts to coastal ecosystems and allow beaches and habitat to thrive. There are many case studies of successful sand replenishment over the past 50 years. Two examples, both Delray Beach, Florida and Seal Beach, California, have effectively restored their shorelines by adding large volumes of sand to counteract erosion and maintain beach width. These initiatives not only bolster coastal protection, but also enhance recreational areas, drawing tourists and preserving the beauty of both coasts for generations to come. And we have the humble beginnings of a successful beach nourishment program right here in San Clemente. The placement of 114,000 cubic yards of sand around the pier was completed in May, and another 86,000 cubic yards is scheduled to be added this fall. This is the first installment on a 50-year project with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. San Clemente city officials have not stopped there. After obtaining a scoop permit, the city sourced nearly 40,000 cubic yards of beach quality sand and is now depositing the golden grain across North Beach. Now all that's left is bringing the sand to the rest of San Clemente's coastline. That and ongoing beach maintenance. Sand is always moving around. So that begs the question, if we dump tons of sand on San Clemente's beaches, how long will it last? The San Clemente littoral cell is located within an embayment. It's bound by Cotton's Point to the south and Dana Point to the north. Offshore bathymetry creates wave patterns that move sand back and forth within the embayment. Unlike the coastal dynamics in Oceanside, where sand generally moves from north to south, in San Clemente we're lucky. Cotton's Point and its wave patterns help keep sand from leaving the San Clemente littoral cell. Once our beaches are stabilized, recurring sand replenishment requires smaller volumes and should be sufficient to allow the embayment to continue to retain sand as it has for the past 100 years. For centuries, man has attempted to reshape the coastline with various structures, sometimes successfully, but many times not. While groins are used to help trap sand and breakwaters to stop waves from breaking on shore, both have proven to reduce sand movement and mitigate erosion on exposed beaches. The West Newport groin field, often called Newport jetties, is a great example of groins being used to trap sand from moving down coast. The problem with groins is they trap sand on the upcurrent side of the beach, but lead to erosion on the downcurrent side, which is exactly the problem they ran into in Newport. They knew that erosion on the downcurrent side of each groin was going to increase. To mitigate this, they chose to build 5 groins, not 1 or 2, to distribute sand more evenly along the beach. Breakwaters, on the other hand, do a great job of blocking waves, but they're not so good for surf spots. Is there a way to protect the coast long-term without blanketing it with groins, jetties, and breakwaters? New strategies are emerging for maintaining flood protection while enhancing sediment transport. These include reducing upstream armoring, dam removal or modification, and natural floodplain restoration. If done correctly, re-engineering flood controls and restoring creeks and rivers would have many potential benefits, including increased sand supplies for erosion hotspots like those we see in San Clemente, reduce sediment excavation from behind dams, which is a huge problem they're having right now in Prado Dam in Riverside County, increased reservoir storage capacity by installing sediment bypass systems that prevent sediment buildup, and finally by boosting groundwater recharge. Along with sand replenishment, upstream infrastructure upgrades could help bring back our beaches. But what about climate change and sea level rise? Fortunately, SoCal has had very little sea level rise, as documented by NOAA over the past century. And climate models project a continuation of this modest trend in SoCal between now and 2050. Beyond that, the models project more accelerated sea level rise. Given almost any range of modeled scenarios, we believe that maintaining wide, sandy beaches is the best defense against rising oceans. As our city manager points out, the only way to move water west is with sand. And here's the thing. We believe each and every one of us has a responsibility to protect the beaches we grew up on, the beaches we love, not only for ourselves, but for our children and for their children. We are not going to let something that might happen in 100 years or even 50 years deter us from this mission. We hope you agree. The good news? The economics of protecting the beach is in our favor. Check this out. There are 3.4 billion visits to beaches annually. That's 225% greater than all other attractions combined. Beach tourists spend $240 billion annually. Beach tourists generate $36 billion in taxes every year, 4 times the total spent on beach nourishment in the last 100 years. Yet, the federal government spends just 4 cents per day visit on beaches, compared to nearly $13 for national parks and $2.50 for recreational lakes. This imbalance needs to change, especially when considering the significant economic returns our beaches generate. So let's summarize the key points. First, sand loss is primarily due to urbanization and the damming of creeks and rivers. Recurring sand replenishment helps replace what we've lost. Additionally, San Clemente is an ideal candidate for this because our littoral cell is located within an embayment. And lastly, the economic benefits of using sand replenishment to maintain beaches and support the coastal economy are undeniable. So how do we fund these investments? Well, the city has explored many alternatives, and the one they've circled as being the most effective is a dedicated sales tax of half a penny called Measure BB. We support Measure BB and encourage residents to educate themselves and vote. Remember, we can't bring back Killer Dana, but we can bring back San Clemente's beaches. Thanks for watching.